Alright, so some of you might be cartoonists, and as you can see, I'm a cartoonist, and you can see me working on the splash part of my page below me for page 52. And that sounds weird when I say below me, because it sounds like I'm saying below me, which I'm not. But anyhow, so a lot of you guys who are artists or illustrators or cartoonists or aspiring artists, maybe you're in art school working on your art and you're just trying really hard to find inspiration or find that muse to like work on your art or find that perfect moment of time where you can create art. And this vlog that I'm going to do is kind of addressing inspiration, and then I'll probably talk just a little bit of vloggy business about my day and my experience. If you look in the background, this is my commute. I'm a full-time art director at in San Fernando, and basically my commute's pretty long, so I'm on my way home. And what I like to do on my way home is get these vlogs done. So what is this vlog? Well, this is vlog number 112. This is the vlog where I talk about Quarterly Stories, which is my graphic novel that I hand write, hand letter, hand ink, and then hand to you, hopefully someday in print. But until that day, it's available serialized online at quarterlystories.com, where you can read it all the way up to page 51, which is the page before the page below me that you're seeing. There's that word again, that you're seeing being executed. So it's a very personal story to me. Sorry, I'm also driving while doing this, and there's been this massive fire. As you can see, the fire department to my left, a lot of fire trucks. They've been very busy putting out this massive fire in this area near basically, I think it's called Placerita, this area, but it's been on fire, and that's just been lovely because it seems like this area lights on fire all the time. But anyhow, so so that's what distracted me. But I think I mentioned, but if I haven't mentioned, it's a very personal story to me. My comic is a very personal story to me about faith and mental illness, and this is the vlog where I document the process and the progress of creating that graphic novel, on top of being a full-time art director, which is where I'm heading home from, a full-time father, which is where I'm heading home to, and husband, which is where I'm heading home to my wife and kid. A few things to touch on before I get into the discussion about inspiration, finding inspiration, or finding ideas of what to draw, what to illustrate, or what to write about. Like, if you're like me, and it seems like most of my subscribers are aspiring creators who want to create stuff, make stuff out of, where there was nothing to make something. And so I'm mainly going to be gearing towards those people. But before I get into that, I'm just going to get a little bit into, some of the vloggy stuff. So today, I usually, since it's Tuesday, I usually do a thing called Rock and Roll Tuesday, where I meet up with my band and we write songs and practice the songs that we've written. And so far, we have about 5 songs written. We're kind of in the middle of writing the 5th and really perfecting it. And hopefully once we have 6 songs, we'll track out a demo. We'll see. I mean, that all is really dependent on whether all the people involved in it kind of stay on board and, continue to write music and stuff. And with bands, it's like family or friendships. It's always hard to predict whether it'll work out. But I do know that my friend Josh and I, we started Rock and Roll Tuesday. It's a lot of fun. It's kind of a hobby to write these songs and try to create music. And we've dedicated every Tuesday to kind of doing this. And usually I'll show a little bit of it in my vlogs, so you can see that. If you're curious what my music sounds like, any vlog with like music related things in the title will probably have a little clip of us working on writing and crafting songs. I think the only thing that we haven't really documented is the last song that we wrote, because it's not quite ready to sort of share. It's not even fully written. We have about a verse, a chorus, and a verse. We don't quite have a breakdown, and so we're working on that in order to draft that. But anyhow, enough rambling about my music. So Tuesdays are usually dedicated to music, and why I'm bringing that up is my friend who I started this whole thing with is on vacation. He's in Europe. I hope he's having a great time. And so Rock and Roll Tuesday is canceled, which basically frees me up to work on comics today. My wife and I have this sort of agreement where we try to give each other kind of one day off a week, meaning like I have a day out with the guys, she has a night where she can kind of do whatever and kind of have a break, because I think when you're a stay-at-home mom in particular, which my wife is, you spend so much time catering to the needs of your child, and you don't really get a lot of time alone. Like even this commute that I'm doing right now, where I have a few, like an hour or sometimes an hour and a half in silence, and where I can think, or I can listen to an audiobook, or I can listen to music. That kind of window of time, I think when you're a stay-at-home mom, just kind of disappears. So we've tried to kind of make this little negotiation where she'll get a night to just kind of spend on her own, to kind of collect herself and hopefully, enjoy herself for that night. So anyhow, Tuesdays are kind of my night to be able to kind of have a night out of the week where I get to hang out with friends. And it's a pretty cool little deal that we have. But like I said, tonight is not Rock and Roll Tuesday, which actually works out since I'm working on this monster that you're watching being executed. And it's taking longer because I have to rule out the backgrounds, and then on top of ruling out backgrounds and doing all of this like kind of detail work, it's a pretty big panel, and generally those bigger panels take a much longer time to execute. So I'm hoping when I get home, if I still have the energy, which I'm hoping I will. I've been being really consistent with working out on that rowing machine that you guys might have seen a few vlogs back, and I've been steadily doing that every single morning and night, and I've kept up with that for almost, I think we're on our third week now since getting that machine, and it's starting to become a habit. But it's also been providing me with just a little bit of extra energy and like a little extra boost throughout the day. So hopefully if I hit that, that'll hopefully give me that little extra bit of energy, a little burst of energy to kind of be able to troop it out and hit it hard, and hopefully finish this panel that you guys are watching being executed. So this is a really rambly vlog, but I really wanted to touch on, and I'm sure I've touched on this in the past on this vlog, inspiration. Because I think that when I was a younger artist, I used to get writer's block a lot. Because I'm a cartoonist who wants to draw and write my own work, I just get blocked. And I even wrote my first comic about writer's block, which is kind of a very like new to writing kind of story, where it's like, I don't know what to write about. Well, I'll write about not knowing what to write about. And that's kind of what I used. And there were some things in it that were really authentic, that were about a breakup that I went through when I was younger and kind of dating around. And it took that as inspiration, and then kind of fictionalized this ending. But the general premise was an artist who really just didn't know what to do art about, and feeling kind of blocked and uninspired. And the moral of it was kind of like the idea that the artist eventually looks at the city and the things around him and realizes there's plenty of things to be inspired by. But what's interesting is thinking back, like how often I would get stymied by just writer's block. And a lot of it would be coming up with a premise or a story or an idea and just being like, yeah, but it's not enough. Like, it's not good enough. It's not quite like that unique, amazing me, myself idea. And this was like really debilitating. Like, for a long time as a young adult, I would actually just avoid doing comics altogether because I kept feeling like I wasn't quite good enough yet, and that I hadn't really refined or learned my skills enough. And so I went to college and, got better, worked on my BFA. And even before the BFA program, like, I'd have random ideas for comics, but I would just kind of come up with these ideas like, or excuses, like, I'm just not inspired. I wish I could be inspired like I was that one time that I did one page or that I wrote a sentence. I don't know. I think I had this false narrative in my head that writing was like this thing that happens when you're hit by the muse. And it was the same with music. Like, I'd really need to be in the mood to write music, and really need to be in the mood to write stories, and really need to be in the mood to draw pictures. And then at any time I'd hit like a roadblock or hit a difficulty, like drawing something I hadn't drawn before, and I would just get frustrated at the fact that I couldn't draw it and kind of give up. Which is weird, because when I was younger, I used to make comics all the time. I used to make art all the time, and I'd just come up with an idea and you just kind of run with it, fake it till you make it kind of thing. And I don't know what happened, but I suspect what happened to get me to that point, and this is me talking about me in the past, is this false narrative of like the starving artist who feels inspired and has to hit the canvas, and then goes and paints a beautiful portrait full of inspiration and life and passion, and or writes like the poem, or like, sits down with one single sheet of paper like Jack Kerouac and just pumps out a story inspired by a road trip. I mean, I had these like ideas of art that aren't necessarily off. I mean, there are some artists who work that way, but they didn't quite fit with the reality that I have now as a much more mature, and I wouldn't say totally experienced artist, because I think the older and the more you do this, the more you realize like you really don't know what you're doing a lot of the time, and you are kind of making it up as you go. You also start realizing how little you know, because you start, being introduced to all these ideas and stuff like that. Like, total tangent, but I think it ties into what I'm talking about. Like, when I was a new teacher, I remember feeling really intimidated going into teaching college classes, thinking like, well, I don't know. I mean, I have freelanced for so many years and stuff like that, but what am I going to teach these kids? And by kids, I mean adults, but, students. What was I going to teach these students? What had I learned that I could impart to them? Like, I felt like, in a weird way, yeah, I'd worked for some big clients and stuff, but what do I know, And then I would step into the classroom and they'd ask these questions that are like really, really uninformed questions about art. And I realized like, oh yeah, I used to be that age, and I used to have those questions too. And I've kind of fumbled my way through like finding some answers to those questions. So actually I could teach. And the more I taught, the more I realized I was really confident teaching, because I had things, a lot of the knowledge just gained through experience of just, just roughing it out with clients, and roughing it out with like figuring out how to draw really crazy things. And not just that, I had also learned how to think a little better, and how to deal with challenges like on your feet, like critically thinking, so that, when a problem arises, you as an artist have trained yourself to switch really quickly into survival and solution mode. So which was an advantage that I don't know if you can have, or I shouldn't say you, because I don't know you. I mean, like, you might have that advantage, but at least for myself, it was an advantage that I had to gain by just kind of doing things the hard way, sometimes doing a lot of things the wrong way, and then just kind of learning and adapting and learning how to be adaptable and learning how to learn. So those things helped me. I know it's kind of weird, but I hope that explains it. Those things helped me gain confidence when I was teaching, because I realized I could teach these students something. And what was cool was when I was teaching, I saw a lot of people progress from being mediocre at art to being excellent artists. And some of them came in being excellent, like way better than I ever was at that age, and would come out like doing art that was better than art that I myself am capable of. And I would realize that through critique and through the eye and the taste and the solution-oriented thinking that I had gained through having to kind of work as a professional artist for so long, I could actually impart a little bit of knowledge to the students. So now I feel like I've gone off on a real tangent, but the point being, I realize that inspiration, I think, is very similar to like when I was first trying to teach. You're confronting a blank page, and I think for a lot of artists, maybe less artists, because there's so much resources available for artists now that just weren't around, or if they were around, you really had to hunt to kind of find them. But now there's resources like online, there's vlogs like the one I'm doing, there's a lot of artists that are doing vlogs, there's podcasts. Like when I initially started a podcast with my friend Kevin, we did a podcast called Big Illustration Party Time. And at the time, like, there really weren't a lot of podcasts that directly addressed how to be a freelance illustrator. And seeing that gap, we were just like, hey, let's just make one. I mean, we do this all day, we talk about it, we think about it, we like podcasts, let's just make it. And now, I mean, you could probably find a podcast about almost anything, including illustration or cartooning. And I'm not criticizing that. I think it's great that there's this wealth of help out there. So hopefully, maybe I'm not speaking to that many artists, but for me, I would find myself very frustrated and very blocked and kind of waiting for this muse to kind of come and visit me and inspire me to make art. And it's just such a weird view of art that I used to have. So let me explain kind of like where my thinking is now on muses, on ideas, on concepting. It all kind of ties together. Ideas and concepts and muses, in my opinion, aren't just going to strike you like lightning. I think occasionally they will, and those are beautiful moments when you get hit with this kind of feeling and you just make something really cool. But I don't know if that's necessarily being an artist, and if it is being an artist, I don't know if it's being a consistent artist or being the kind of artist that you can rely on for yourself, for income, or for like long-term projects. I think that's a very short-term solution, and I'm kind of in the business at the age I'm at of looking for long-term solutions, because there's not that much time. And if you're relying on things that work really well in the short term but do not pan out for long term, then if you want to do something like a graphic novel, best of luck to you, because you might end up just very quickly digging yourself into a hole, or end up making like a mediocre comic. And So here's what I'm going to kind of get at. The muse does strike. There is this kind of unspoken thing that hits when you're passionate about something and you care about something. Sometimes you will get struck with these weird ideas that are almost like you tapped into the heavens and you had a brilliant thought. And I know this because when I was doing t-shirt design, the era that I was working in t-shirt design, a concept would really sell a shirt and execution would do okay. But a really strong concept was a rare thing. And if you came up with a decent concept, especially like a real seller, it is kind of weird because it is like it would come out of nowhere. And then if you get really good momentum of coming up with good concepts, it would almost like open this floodgate in your mind of into like this realm of a different conceptual way of thinking, where you just have like 10 good concepts, like great selling concepts, hit you all at once. And then if you kind of break that momentum, it would take a while to kind of get back to a point where that floodgate of concepts would open. But here's what I'm going to suggest is I think there are ways as an artist to make the muse come, or at least provide an open door for the muse or for inspiration to hit when it chooses to. Basically to make it less random and less short-term and much more predictable. So my thinking on it now is when I find inspiration is when my son is asleep and I have a few hours, or starting with just try to carve out 15 minutes to sit down and work on my comic. That's when inspiration hits. So it's usually about 8 o'clock at night. And it usually lasts until, I need to go to bed, basically. So it doesn't always start with inspiration. What happens is I force myself to sit, to work on it, to work through it, to even make a bad thing. When it's writing, a lot of it is just writing junk. Like even this current chapter that I'm working on, there were 4 different versions of this chapter that needed to be scrapped and reworked, and finally I've ended up at the chapter that I'm working on, as you can see below. So I'm not saying that you're going to suddenly everything you do is going to be inspired or genius, and if that's the case, I envy you. That's amazing. I'm more getting at the idea that by just attacking it all the time, you're really opening up more of a possibility to have that occasional time where you tap into that nether world that we were talking about, that great moment of inspiration. Meaning, if you sit down and you carve out a specific amount of time and you make a goal, and you just kind of buy the goal, like whatever the goal is. Let's say the goal is to draw a mermaid. I'm only using that because there was that mermaid drawing thing on Instagram that was really trendy. So let's say that's your goal, to draw a mermaid. Just keep sitting down and try to draw a mermaid, and keep attacking it every single day for a certain allotted amount of time. Hold yourself to a high standard, like not too high of a standard to hit, but a higher standard than you think you can currently do. And I think if you do that and you just consistently are working on whatever it is that you want to do, you're going to find that you make a lot more progress than talking about it or thinking about it or waiting for that burst of inspiration and spending 3 days straight on something. Now, if you get that burst of inspiration, great, chase it, enjoy it. But what I'm getting at is that burst of inspiration, at least for me, my own experience has been when I've started building habits of creating art consistently, it allows, it kind of forces inspiration to come, and it also becomes like a gateway to more inspiration. Because sometimes when you work through an issue or a problem, you reach a cathartic stage of clear thinking, rational thinking, and then higher thinking. And a lot of that is done with work. And that's the part that I think a lot of artists, young artists, may not want. And maybe that's why there's this perception that the artist just sits around and has paintbrushes near them and has paint near them. And they get hit by the muse and they just paint all night and have this beautiful body of work in the morning. Or the writer sits at his typewriter waiting for the muse to speak, staring at the blank page. Suddenly, pow, inspiration, they start writing the great American novel. For me, my own experience has been very opposite from that. Like, a lot of my art making has been sitting down, like even concepts for shirts, which I brought up earlier. It's been sitting down, doing, tens of hundreds of thumbnails, and 80% of them are just schlock, terrible ideas. A lot of them are just like disposable, horrible ideas. With cartooning, roughing out panels and it's just not working out. With writing entire paragraphs and chapters that end up getting scrapped later because they were dead ends or they were bad ideas. Those things tend to be kind of like 80% of the time. And you keep carving out, all that time every day to work on your art. What you find is that little 20% really adds up after a while. And the more you're at it, the percentages start favoring you. Like, once you get in the zone and you build that, what I was talking about, that momentum of creativity, and you start opening that floodgate of higher thinking in art, then you start hitting more home runs. And part of why you're hitting more home runs is that you're at the batting cage. I know I'm making a ton of analogies here, but it does make sense. It's like a lot of people want to get on the ball court. Is that a ball court? Oh my gosh, I don't know sports. Well, anyhow, a lot of people want to get on the baseball diamond, to keep with the baseball analogy, not the ball court. And they just want to pick up any bat and just play perfectly. And I think most people, when they're kids, have that frustration. At least I know I did, because I was terrible at sports. But I really had this fantasy that I would just step on a baseball field or whatever, and I would just swing a home run, and everybody at the school would be like, "Yay, you're so good!" But I also had this fantasy, and I didn't really practice a lot. So, but I'd still have that fantasy, but it never made it reality. Like I was saying, a lot of people who get good at baseball sit down and they practice over and over again, and they go to a batting cage and they swing and miss a lot, and then they swing and miss a lot, and continue that until occasionally they start hitting the ball. What ends up happening is you're training yourself as you're missing what to adjust so that you can hit the ball. And once you've kind of figured out how to hit the ball, then you can keep practicing, and what you're going to notice is your average goes up. And it may not seem like it at first, because it's very frustrating to be consistent and train yourself in those ways. But to me, that's very much how I view inspiration. A lot of the time, I'm going to the batting cages in faith that eventually I will hit the ball. And what I've found is the older I've gotten, the more that I continually show up and do the work, the more often I get those occasional home runs, and they become less occasional. So that is a little rant about inspiration, and I hope that kind of made sense. I hope that's not too rambly. that's kind of my thoughts on it. But what I would say, if you are a young artist and you're having trouble kind of hitting that home run, I would first ask yourself, are you going to the batting cages all the time? Are you practicing? Are you learning from errors and trying something different? Are you basically being consistent? Because if you're not being consistent, there's not a lot of chance of you getting good at it. Now, I've been doing this vlog for a while, and there's a lot of things that I don't think I'm doing perfectly as a vlogger. But if there's one thing that I've been keeping at, it's been consistency. I am trying my hardest to continue to post on these vlogs. What I've found, at least for myself, is that it's in turn made me more comfortable talking to a camera and creating vlogs themselves. Now, does that mean anything for like the quality of it? I don't know. My main focus is not vlogging. And I enjoy making vlogs, and I am trying to make better content. It's part of why I'm kind of switching formats to this smaller screen over the drawing, because I personally have found that a lot of the times that I listen to vlogs, I'm listening. I'm not necessarily watching vlogs. I'm kind of eyeballing the vlog occasionally. So a lot of the art vlogs I watch, I really want audio. And I think I asked a few vlogs back, like, would people prefer, like a vlog that's mostly just music and me creating art, or would they like the voiceover? And I think a lot of people have the same experience as I do. Like, when they're watching a vlog, it's kind of like listening to an artist while you're working. And since a lot of my audience are people who are making stuff, I've realized I want to start catering these vlogs more to people who are making stuff. So yeah, so that's a long-winded rant on inspiration and making art. And I'm almost home, and I should be, hopefully, within this video, at least at the halfway point on the middle of my page. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to try to get home, sit down, get in the batting cage, and try to hit a home run and get this middle panel, or what I'd call is more of like a, I can't even think of what that would be called. It's basically the main focus of the page. This giant splash in the center of the page. So yeah, I'm gonna work on that, and I'm gonna try to hit it. And every time I attack a new panel or take on a new project or sit down to work on something, I am immediately engaging in the risk of possibly failing, but I am also opening the doors to the possibility of success a lot more than just sitting around waiting for an arbitrary or really fickle muse to kind of come and inspire me. The other thing I'll say is, like, with all of that said, your state of mind does matter when you're approaching art. If you're not feeling it when you're working on something, it really shows, I think. And so I do have to try to construct and come up with ways to get my mind in the game. Part of that, like, at least for me, part of the solution for that has been to build the habit of doing it. Like, to continually do it until it becomes ingrained, like a habit. And then I desire to do it because it's like an addiction. And when you have a desire to repeat something that you've done a lot, it kind of cheats the feeling and thing, because when you finally get to sit down and do it, it's like it's very cathartic. It's very nice. It's like you're checking something off a list. That's a list you have permanently implanted in your subconscious. So maybe I'll get into that a little bit later. But so that's pretty much it. So thank you to those of you who like, comment, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you haven't yet, I say this every video, I know, and there's a reason I say it. It's like literally because I put these things out and this is the one way I know whether to continue putting these things out. So if you haven't, just hit the subscribe button on my main YouTube page. If you're watching this through Facebook or through a different platform, just go ahead and click the video onto my YouTube page and then hit subscribe. It really helps, and it really actually helps grow this channel and create this kind of awesome YouTube community that's around us. Thanks also to those of you who like and comment and share these videos. That helps a lot. The comments also really help me have some ideas of what to address on the next vlog. So yeah, so thanks anyhow. Thanks to all of those of you who've stuck with me from vlog number 1 to now. It's just been a really encouraging ride, and I also I kind of have gotten addicted to YouTube, so I'm excited to stop vlogging now and be able to catch up on all the vlogs that I subscribe to, you know, and hopefully they have audio over their visuals as well. So yeah, so that's it, and I will see you guys next week. I am so sorry this one was rambly, but then again, this is my vlog, and I do tend to ramble, so it is what it is. All right.